So what we'll talk about today is someone who is nearing retirement and he's looking at an annuity to protect his money and generate income. You'll see that he is 58 years old. He's got some money in an old 401k, and we're going to look at two different types of annuities, one that is focused on growth and one that is focused on income. So before we just dive into the annuities, let's go into a little bit of information about him. So he is 58 years old. He's got money in an old 401k, and he wants to use the money in his 401k. I say old 401k because he's no longer with that employer. He wants to use that money to fund his annuity, potentially fund his annuity. So the first thing I want to hit on is how does that work regarding taxes? So starting with a 401k, how do you pay money in? When you pay money, I should say when you contribute money into a 401k, so you've got you, here's my dollar, I'm going to give it to my 401k. The dollar that you pay into that 401k or that you contribute is done with what is called pre-tax money. You can write it off of your income. So for example, if you make an income of $100,000 per year and you decide to contribute $10,000 to a 401k, what would happen is your taxable income for reporting purposes would not be 100 grand, it would be 90,000 because you've got your 100k minus your $10,000 401k contribution. Therefore, you're going to save some money on taxes. You won't save $10,000 in taxes because now the tax rate is applied on 90 grand instead of 100 grand. But that's a good topic for another video. Anyway, it's funded with pre-tax dollars. So you have not paid taxes on any money that you contribute into the 401k. The growth on the account is tax deferred. What that means is as it grows, you do not have to pay any taxes. What about when it comes to you using the money? So if you say, I want my money, how do I get it? Well, when it comes to accessing it, and again, this is just with a 401k, you'll see how this ties into an annuity. When it comes to accessing the money, you have to pay ordinary income tax on everything you access. If you are under the age of 59 and a half, you will likely have to pay a 10% penalty tax if you touch it prior to age 59 and a half. I say likely because there are some instances where you can get around that 10% penalty tax. But if I access it before 59 and a half, before I retire, I'm going to have to pay a 10% penalty tax. So this is considered a qualified account that is primarily used for, guess what? Retirement. A great tool to build money quickly because it all grows tax deferred. But when it comes to distributing money, I do have to pay income tax on everything, which is good to be aware of. So I have funded this. I have contributed to this account with pre-tax dollars. I have paid zero tax on it. So if I said, I don't want it in the 401k anymore because I've lost money before, I finally made up for lost time, I just don't want it there. No problem. What you can do is move it to another account, which in this case will be an annuity. Now, before I jump into that, let me use an illustration that a lot of people are familiar with. You may have done this before. If you have an old 401k with a company that you no longer work for, do you have to keep the 401k with that company? You do not. What you can do is transfer it. It's called a rollover to an IRA, which stands for Individual Retirement Account. When you roll it over, there's no tax. So transferring it from one account to another account, as long as it is a qualified account still, there's no tax upon the transfer. Now, when you begin to take money from that IRA, we're going to have to pay income tax. So you can do the same exact thing with an annuity. We can move money from the 401k to an annuity. This would be considered, oopsie daisy, this would be considered a qualified annuity, just like the qualified 401k, meaning it'll still grow tax deferred, but when I eventually take money out to live on or do whatever I want with, I'm going to have to pay income tax on that. So the annuity is qualified, but when he transfers money from the 401 to the annuity, there's no tax there. If we transfer it or roll it over. By the way, none of this is meant to be considered tax advice. This is meant for educational purposes only. Disclaimer there. Okay, so that's information on his 401k and how he could actually move the money into the annuity. So why does he want to do that? Why move money from 401k to an annuity? Main reason why: he doesn't want to deal with this word anymore, because he's been burned before, and at his age now, he's like, I don't want it there, I'm not comfortable, just give me peace of mind. Like, that's what I'm most concerned about right now. Peace of mind is usually where an annuity is a good fit. Don't know why I erased that. Let's go back. So why is he doing that? Because he does not want risk. Okay. So what we're going to look at is moving the 401 into two types of annuities. It's going to be one or the other in this case. Option one will be an annuity that is focused on growth. It's called an indexed annuity, and we'll explain exactly how that works in a minute. The second one will be an annuity that is focused on producing income. And this is called an income annuity. Okay. So let's start with the growth annuity. We have conversations. I had conversations with him on both in depth, because it's very important to see which one is going to benefit him more. And he could split it if he wanted to. But let's look at the indexed annuity first and just go over how it works. A lot of people like this, and you'll see why in a minute. So with an indexed annuity, my money is tied to an index. The most common index that is used is the S&P 500. So how does it work? Let's start with this. Let's pretend you just put money in the S&P 500. What's going to happen over time? Up and down over the long haul. It's likely going to have a very, very attractive gain. When you just look at the history of the S&P 500, it works. But looking at his case, let's say a very simple example. 1, 2, 3, 4 years. And we will start at ground zero, because this is important. So ground zero, he's at $180,000. Let's assume that the first year, the S&P 500 produces how much money, or what kind of return? Let's say it's 10%. So 10%, his money goes up. Let's say year two, the S&P produces 20%. Oh yeah, it is going up. Then year three, it loses 15%. Oh no, my money's gone down. And then year four, it produces 5%. Okay, I got some of it back. That's great. That's if you have your money invested in the market. With the annuity, it works a bit different. So let's put this to the right. There we go. So with the annuity, looking at the same thing. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You start at ground zero. The first year, the S&P 500 produces 10%. You get 10%. The second year, the S&P 500 produces 20%. You get not 20%. You get 10%. So your upside is limited by what is called a cap rate in this particular example. There are different strategies that will limit the upside of an annuity. A common example is a cap rate. You're capped at whatever that rate is in terms of total earnings. The next year, what happened? Well, the S&P, with the example to the right, we lost 15%. So the market loses 15%. You see a 0% return. So for the guy that had the money in the market, they lost money. You did not lose anything. Your principal is protected. Then if the market goes up 5% again next year, you go up with it. So how an indexed annuity works is I can still participate in the not directly in the market, but my participation is tied to the stock market. Whereas if the market goes up, I go up with it. If the market goes down, my principal is protected. I'm protected from the downside. That's where people are often attracted to it. So that's a big upside to it. There are some drawbacks, which I'm going to show you in a minute when we look at an actual illustration. But if he wanted to grow his money, that's an option, and that's the one he was more attracted to. There is just flat fixed interest rate annuities. They're called multi-year guaranteed annuities, or just get a fixed rate and it is what it is. In his case, he gravitated more toward the indexed annuity because it was more exciting. I could get more upside. So let's look at an illustration here. So this will be pretty cool. Here we've got his $180,000 deposit. He's 58 years old. With the indexed annuity, this is a good option if he says, I'm not going to need access to the balance very much over the next 7 to 10 years. Why I say 7 to 10 years is because most indexed annuities are going to have a surrender charge or a surrender period of 7 to 10 years. I'll go through exactly how the surrender period works in 2 minutes. Less than that. So here is I pulled this from an illustration. The performance here is tied to the S&P 500. So if he deposits $180,000, based on the past 10 years of the stock market, if history repeats itself, he'll have $186,000. History is likely not going to repeat itself in the exact same fashion. So these are always hypothetical illustrations. But we see the account value. This is showing what the account would have grown to if he would have purchased this annuity with this company 10 years ago, and assuming the insurance company made no changes, which does happen, by the way. Anyway, that's the account value. 10 years, it grows to $526,000. The surrender fee, remember that? So how the surrender fee works is it is a percentage that gradually declines over time, the actual percentage. But if I cash out of the product of the annuity within that surrender term, which with most annuity contracts, I see 7 to 10 years, if I cash out, I have to pay that surrender fee to the insurance company, which no one wants that. So I have my surrender value then. So it's pretty simple. Here, I've got $186,000 minus the surrender fee gives me about $170,000. The next year, the market jumped Look at that. $274,000. The surrender fee, 24, almost 25 grand. If he cashed out, you'd have 250. And sometimes people look at that and still say, well, that's pretty good without risk because that's a lot more than what I paid in. I don't know that it's going to jump that much again, just for full transparency. But the surrender fee just shows me the net dollar amount that I would get. The surrenders are money that goes to the insurance company. Question for you. Let's say year 2 at 59.5, you cash out. Your account value is 274. Surrender value is 250. What do you get? 250. What about the IRS rules? This is a qualified annuity because it came from an old 401k. So what that means, you've got to pay income tax on the amount that you receive. The IRS is still going to assess their tax treatment when you cash it out. So a big thing to be aware of with qualified annuities is if I decide to cash them out, maybe I have to for whatever reason, I'm going to get hit with a surrender fee and the IRS penalty, which is not fun, especially if I'm under the age of 59 and a half. So we always like to make that just very clear and transparent and discuss what we plan on using the annuity for to make sure we don't run into some issue in the future. Like, no one wants that. So that's the indexed annuity, which is primarily focused on growing his money safely. What's the second type of annuity? That'd be the income annuity when we look at it here. So this one is a bit more straightforward, and it's one of my favorites. And the reason why is because it's cut and dry. I can say, here's how much money I'm going to give to the insurance company, and in exchange, they tell me exactly what I'm going to get. So, for example, if you said, here's $180,000. If I give it to you, insurance company, here's a big pile of cash. What are you going to give me in exchange? Well, the first thing they will do is say, thank you for your big pile of cash. But then, in exchange, they're going to say, we will guarantee that you'll receive income forever, if it's an annuity where we select a lifetime income option. So the income amount is going to vary depending on when we start taking income. So for example, if he says, I'm 58 years old now, how much income will this guarantee me if I start taking income at 59? What if I start taking income at 60? What about 62? What you will find is the longer you wait, the higher the income is. Remind you of anything? There you go. Social Security. The longer I wait, the higher the monthly benefit is. The thing to be aware of, and what we like to look at, is how do I maximize that benefit? Meaning if I start taking income earlier, yes, I might get a lower monthly amount, but if I get more money total, it might be worth it. It really depends on my situation. Let's take a look. So here's an income annuity. We're going to deposit 180, and we'll start taking income at 59 years old, which is just about $1,000 per month, which comes out to $12,000 per year. This would be fully taxable to him. So if his taxable income is $50,000, for example, what would happen, because this is coming from a qualified annuity, just like a 401k, it would be taxable, meaning the $12,000 is added to the $50,000, which means his taxable income is now $62,000. And sometimes what I like to do is look at our total income and then estimate what the tax rate will be. Of course, we'll work with the CPA too on that. That way we can see what's my net income at the end of the day. But it is 100% taxable income that is going to be tacked on to whatever your taxable income already is. So that's what it looks like if he starts taking income within a year, on 59.5 in this example. There's the total income over time. So this tallies up the payments. Pretty cool. Next, what if I start taking income at 60 years old? So I wait a couple years. I don't take it next year. I take it the following year. Well, that gives me almost an extra $100 per month. Just about $1,100 per month total. $13,000 in change per year when I look at that. And here's what you can do. So which one makes more sense to you? Well, if you start taking income right away, I get out of the gates faster. But look at this. See what's going on there? Between the 11th and 12th year is where I got more total dollars with this annuity. He'll be not even 70 at that point in time. So he's still in the prime golden years of retirement. This one, if he can afford to wait, probably makes more sense. Of course, it depends on him and his situation. What if he says, hey, I'm not going to need it because I'm going to go back to work for a few more years. At 62, I want to start taking income. All right, well, at 62, gives him about $1,300 per month. And this is guaranteed too. Like there's no hypotheticals here. You'll see from the insurance company, here's your guaranteed income payout per month, $16K per year. Look at the total. And we can look at it side by side. You're just about at age 70. 144 compared to 144. Here you got an extra $500. By the next year, this one looks better. And if he defers it longer, it actually looks a little bit better. But just in speaking with him, he said 62. That's probably my threshold as far as the maximum age I'll wait before I start taking income from this. So it really depends on his situation. An income annuity is going to guarantee an income stream. This is nice if you just want this. Peace of mind, and I don't have to think about it. Pen's not going to work on this. There we go. Peace of mind, and I don't have to think about it. I don't have to look at the account balance. I asked him, though, do you like to see the money grow? Do you want to see it continue to grow? Meaning you don't just want to generate income from it. And he said, yes. Income's important to him, but it's not the main priority right now. He's in a position where he says, hey, this income is great, but it's not dire for me. I think I'd rather grow the money, and then maybe I grow it to a certain balance and try to produce income from it later. Not quite sure, but in speaking with him, he was definitely gravitating toward growing it for now because taking income early is not a priority, just based on what he has going on in his life and such. But it's definitely something to talk about because while the product is nice because it shows you exactly what you'll get with your money, on the guaranteed income side at least, we still have to do some planning and strategy. It's something we discuss. Anyway, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your thoughts if you have any. And as always, I hope this helps. Thanks so much.